She says that they're her friends, but they leave her out, and they keep making jokes that seem to hurt her. And when you ask if everything's okay, she says, I don't want to make them mad. If you've ever had that moment when you realize that your daughter is trying to earn friendship when it should be given away freely, this video is for you. Today, I'm going to talk about how autistic girls get pulled in to these toxic friendships, the subtle bullying that occurs, and the peer pressure that can come along with being a teenager. And on top of that, I'm going to talk about what you can do as a parent, teacher, caregiver on how to make her feel safe and empowered and worthy of real connection. I'm Dr. James Thatcher. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in Portland, Oregon, and I specialize in giving autism evaluations and therapy to kids and teens. And today, in the third video in our series of bullying, I'm going to talk about an issue that tends to get overlooked in autistic girls: covert bullying, and why so many girls engage in masking in order to just fit in. Why are autistic girls vulnerable to peer pressure? Autistic girls want deep connection just like anybody else, but their difficulties reading social cues and their people-pleasing behaviors in order to fit in make them extremely vulnerable, especially to toxic friendships. They may stay in a toxic friendship because they don't want to be rude. They may mimic the behavior of the group that they're in, even though that's not them. Sometimes they can get pulled into group chats, inside jokes, or gossip that makes them feel extremely uncomfortable. And girls on the autism spectrum tend to struggle to identify when they're being manipulated, excluded, and microaggressions. And they have a higher vulnerability to relational aggression. And unlike boys, girls tend to have what's called mean girl behavior. So what does this look like? Mean girl behavior, unlike physical bullying, is harder to spot. But here's some signs that you can look for. Sudden changes in mood after hanging out with certain peers, feeling responsible for keeping other people happy, fear of being excluded or being talked about, and repeatedly forgiving hurtful behavior because they don't want to be alone. I want to share an example of a teen girl that I worked with a long time ago, to where her friend group would save her texts and share it with one another. And she found out that they were doing this and they were laughing about her behind her back. And when she confronted them, like, hey, what is going on here? They said, oh, you're being sensitive. Don't worry about it. This is just a joke. And she started doubting her own instincts. That maybe I am too sensitive. That's classic gaslighting, folks. So how can we help with this? How can we teach teenage girls on the autism spectrum to set boundaries that they're comfortable with and to trust their own instincts? Girls who mask often struggle to recognize when they're uncomfortable because they're taught to push those feelings down. So how can you help them? Help them learn how to check in with their own feelings. Help them identify and process their own feelings. Creating a safe place for them to talk about what's going on. If they don't have the words at that moment in time, that's okay. Using other methods, drawing it out, using art, have them write a poem about it, color. You can help them practice different things to say. I don't like that. That doesn't feel like a joke to me. I need a break from this group. And that brings me to another one. So where you can practice a safe exit from a group. I need space at this moment in time. I'm going to need to take a break. It's okay to get up and leave if you're feeling uncomfortable. And another thing that you can use is using something that's more visual. So talking about and drawing out green, yellow, and red zones in order for her to help recognize when a friendship is starting to feel unsafe. And I've used this in therapy before. So where I've had teens talk about certain friends that are green, where they're very comfortable, they can feel open, this person talks to them about their feelings. yellow to where they're feeling kind of uncomfortable, something is off, but they can't quite put their finger on it, and red to where they know deep down, this is unhealthy. This person is hurting me. And it helps them recognize this hurt. And what this does is it gives teens the tools and the permission to recognize and trust their own instincts. Another thing that we can do for them is to help them reframe what a friendship actually means. A lot of what I like to do in therapy with autistic girls is to teach them that real friendships respect boundaries. Another one that I like to talk about is that you don't have to change who you are in order to belong. A big one that I run into with autistic girls is trouble saying no. So practicing that in therapy, practicing that with your child, with your student. And the core belief behind that is, I shouldn't say no because I want to belong. No, reframing that narrative where no means that you are respecting yourself and you're setting your own boundaries and you're letting other people know what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. And another one to help them out with is that trustworthy people don't punish you for having your own needs. And as I may have mentioned before, that there's a lot of research out there talking about how autistic girls are more vulnerable to relational aggression. And due to the masking that occurs, girls tend to push down their own identity and not really know who they are. They're not allowed to explore who they are because they want to fit in so bad with other folks. They're not allowed that time for exploration in their own identity. And on top of that, there's also poor boundary recognition. So essentially, when is this request from a friend too much? When is it unreasonable? When is that line being crossed? That's harder for girls on the spectrum to recognize. So how do we help her find the right people? And I want you to keep in mind that this isn't about having her fit in with everyone. No, it's about helping her find the right people that get her, that understand her, that see her for who she is and accept her for that. So a couple strategies to use is to connect her with any shared interest groups. So groups that are into animals or art or arts and crafts or movies, things that she's passionate about. Consider autism friendly or neurodiversity friendly groups. I know one here in the Portland metro area, there's a group called EMU, and I'll put that down in the description below. And keep in mind, you're going to let her lead the way in these friendships. You're not the one that's establishing these friendships with other folks. She is. So she's got to have the motivation, the emotional buy-in. She's the one that's got to try. You're there to support her and set up opportunities, but she's the one that's got to follow through. And as always, celebrate her. Celebrate her passions, her quirks, not as a weakness, but because they're a strength. I want to share another story with you to where I had a patient of mine share with me how it wasn't all the way up until high school. So she went through all of grade school, middle school. It wasn't until high school that she finally met a group of kids that got her. They were nerdy, they were kind, they were caring. And what she related to me was that she was finally able to not have to perform all the time. The words that she used were, I can finally breathe again. So here's my final thoughts. If your teenage autistic daughter or student or patient is struggling with bullying, remember it's not about her fitting in. It's about her finding her own worth. Real friendships feel safe. Real friendships feel calm. And she deserves that. And the message that she needs to hear today is you don't need to earn love by being somebody else. You're enough exactly how you are.